Welcome back to Happy Hour, our podcast for young adults here at the Cathedral of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus. I'm Rick, and I'm actually not at the cathedral. This week, I get the honor and privilege of being on campus at the University of Notre Dame with some of my fellow MA students in theology. And are you in for a treat? Because I have two gentlemen with me who are my special guests, and we're going to have a great conversation. So, Bobby, we're going to start with you. We'll give you, I know I just said your name, but you're going to give a full introduction, just kind of your name, where do you live, and what drew you to Notre Dame?
Well, Rick, I appreciate being on the show. I really am glad to be here. My name's Bobby Everly, working on my master's in theology again, and it really... Growing up, I grew up north. I'm in Texas now, outside of Houston, but the Notre Dame name was always out there. So when I had the opportunity to pursue this degree, this was the only place I looked.
This was it.
Yeah, this was.
There was no other choice.
Right. This is a bucket list item for sure, and just to be here with all the folks, getting to know you, getting to know our next guest Jay, it's really been just an honor. I mean, it just to talk faith and people's backstories on what led them to this juncture. It's really interesting. It's really fascinating. So,
that's awesome. And we met last year.
Right.
It was our first. The three of us all met last year, and that made such a mark on me meeting you and the other MA students that there was no way I wasn't going to podcast with you guys this year. And who knows what comes next year? Anyway, we have another guest with us as well. Jay, tell us who you are, where you live, and what drew you to the MA program at Notre Dame.
Yeah, Rick, thanks so much for having me on. My name is Jay Hudson, MA student in theology here at University of Notre Dame, along with Rick and Bobby. From Austin, Texas, originally from California, but we don't have to have that conversation.
That's okay.
Today.
And we love you. We still love you. It's amazing.
Accepting,
that's right.
But I really do believe that I'm here by the grace of God. I don't know why I applied to the program. The university. Look, come on, guys.
Of course.
We've been walking around this place the last,
There's a reason.
Last year, this last summer, and just the minds, the quality of the professors, the students, it oozes like, take me to Jesus. So that's why I'm, ultimately I'm just following the call, enjoying every minute of it, and we'll see what happens after it with my degree, but. Just gonna enjoy the ride for now.
It's interesting that you say that too. Like it points you towards Jesus, like it oozes Jesus. And when you say that, so a lot of our studies are online, right? The majority, in fact, it's only once a year where we come for 4 days, and we get to actually be in person. Now, I could stay online, get my degree, and say I'm a University of Notre Dame grad, and that's nice, but there's something about being here. It's not just that the people exude it. There's something about the physical location, the buildings, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it was interesting. Last night we did a Marian tour of different sites from the early days of the University of Notre Dame, starting in the log chapel, and then to the basilica, and then to the grotto, which most people are somewhat familiar with. And the one thing I kept looking at was Father Kevin Grove, who was kind of our guide. He had this necklace on that was the Holy Cross and the two anchors.
Right.
And it's like, this place is an anchor for us.
Yeah.
Like, I know, having had so many conversations with both of you, it's like it anchors you in a way that, we could get the piece of paper.
Sure.
And, we graduated from Notre Dame, but without this kind of on-campus experience, I don't think you're anchored so much in the values that Notre Dame exudes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I first started, the seminars have been great, but I took one of the full summer classes a couple summers ago, and 3 hours of class, but I stayed here all day, every day, because
Why?
It's like, because I've just never felt anything like it. I mean, you walk in and you see the touristy touchdown Jesus, but it's like, it's not a picture, you're there.
Yeah.
And there's something that hits you, and it's like, man, I don't want to leave this place.
Yeah.
It's just, it sinks in, and then you meet the folks, you meet the professors, you meet your fellow students, and it's just amazing.
And they're not just heads in a box, they're actually, flesh and bone, which is great. When I first stepped foot on campus last year, it really was transformative, because it's the moment you realize this is so much bigger than me and my experience. Because listen, it takes effort to get here. We all work in very different areas of the world. We'll talk about that, but It all took effort for all of us to get here. And our story, like in my world, my story dominates my thoughts, of course. But when you step foot on campus, all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's not just about your story. There's so much more here, and it's humbling. And it draws you into deeper, because I make so much of the world about me. A lot of times I think the world is a play, and I'm at the center of it. And hey, congrats, guys, you made the cut. You're in my play. But when you step foot here, it's larger than my play. It's and in fact,
lead,
and so then it's not even my play. I'm a character in the larger play. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was going to add to that is, and it goes back to scripture too. I mean, everyone can pray on their own and get a lot out of it. That individual deep prayer is transformational. But you said 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, he is there. And I've never felt this way. I think Jay and I talked about it a little bit last year, where us gathering together, you feel that power. That's something that's not just me and my faith.
Right.
Now it's everybody's, and I feel the goodness. I feel the dedication of others, and it's something outside of me. And to me, that is the most powerful thing. You go into the basilica, and you go into any chapel, and you're praying. Well, just being together as a group is just, I felt it last year, and that was one of the main things I was looking forward to, is just to feel that again.
Well, if you think about it, Christ and God know us better than we know ourselves. And why was it a church? Why wasn't I just wrote it all down in a book and I handed you the manual to know who I am and know my name and know how to respond to the love that I share with you? And we are social beings. We were created by God to be social beings. And so when you're in a place like the University of Notre Dame, it kind of that social component of not only being on a college campus and enjoying the time with friends and having good times after class and all that, it's one thing. But on the other side of it, it's really like reconnecting in a way from a social standpoint with what it meant to be a member of this church. I think that's really part of what makes Notre Dame so special. Not to say that any other institution of higher learning or a Catholic institution, but there's just something different about this place, and I think that's what I'll be coming back here my whole life because of this experience.
Admissions is going to be happy to hear that. But also, what I'll point out is we have another MA student with us who last night I was having a conversation, and he had gotten here early, a couple days early, and it was early in the morning, and he was just walking around. So his temptation was he was going to put his earbuds in, and we've all been there, and then walk, do some stuff and whatever. But he said he resisted that temptation, kept the earbuds out intentionally, and it was so beautifully quiet. That the fear was that he was missing out on something when he added something, right? And then the thought was, oh my gosh, how many students, undergrads, might do that? Because we're all going to go back and we're going to be like, oh man, Notre Dame. Some of these guys get to live that every day. And is there the understanding of that? Like, is that like super cognizant in their moments? I don't know. I can't answer that for them.
So to add to your little story there, Rick, I actually purposely did not bring my earbuds on the entire trip.
Really?
Yeah, because
I brought 2 pairs. So if you need one, I'm good to go.
It's like I'm riding a bike around campus, like on my phone. I'm like, man, this is really this whole trying to avoid being disconnected, but it's being in the world, but not of the world. And that's in order to do that. And I'm super steeped right now because we're in the process of learning about miracles, particularly those at Lourdes. And there's a line in Franz Werfel's novel as Bernadette is approaching the location where she first meets and then continually meets the lady, which is our Blessed Mother. And it says, Bernadette listened. And there was something about that line that had highlighted, and that's really what compelled me not to bring my earbuds on this trip. Yeah. So
that's interesting. So you made a phrase that I love to take advantage of. It's being in the world but not of it. That's scriptural, right? Let's talk about that for a second, because my profession is to be in the church world, right? So it's pretty simple for me to talk about my faith and live out my faith in my setting. You guys, however, are not in the church world. So, Bob, I'm going to throw it over to you first. Kind of maybe share with us, what do you do? Like, what dominates your time? And how is it that you can possibly be in that world but not of it, and maybe bring Christ into that world? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But in my world, it's a very big challenge because I do politics for a living. I'm a political commentator and on TV and radio, and also an elected official. So we are now in a world where when it comes down to politics, it's very win or lose.
Oh, yeah.
Black or white, you're either on our side or you're not on our side.
Right.
And so what actually the theology degree, talking with you folks, being here, it helps put another layer on that, another layer where we see things deeper, we see things closer. We're called to be a body of Christ, not a group over here and a group over there, one. And so if you truly believe that, if you try to live that, then even in the political arena, you're going to try to find something that brings us together. Doesn't mean you water down your political beliefs,
right?
But what you do is you realize that those political beliefs are exactly that, political beliefs. It's not your complete worldview. It's not your Catholic view. It's not your calling. Your true calling is to bring people together, to be part of that body, to evangelize. And so. So I'm trying to bring that more and more into the people that I deal with, that I work with, so that they know, right? I mean, I think the greatest failing that we could have as a political leader is for you to do all this so-called leading and they not know your faith.
Right.
They do not know that guides you in part of the decisions. And I think we've seen a turn in the country because so many people are like that. And
How difficult is that to bring that into that world? Because you say, I'm trying to do that. I cannot even begin to imagine when you're dealing with government, which is supposed to be a separation of the two, right? That's not supposed to be in it at all. In fact, they strip away a lot of prayers before meetings now and things like that, intentionally to break that, make that barrier. So how is it possible to be a political commentator, to be an elected official, and yet have the morality and the values that you hold personal from your faith life seep into the political realm? How can you do that, Bobby?
It's a little bit of a challenge. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit easier because I'm on the party that tends to be more open with that,
Gotcha.
be outward with that. So in that case, you're seldom in a hostile environment when you're in your bubble, right? But on the flip side, though, if you're in a more secular setting, and you're out there talking, and you're talking about, say, being pro-life, and these are the reasons why, and you bring that faith in, you're doing that with the realization that you're probably turning some people off, actually, in that audience. So you have to be grounded enough in your beliefs and your willingness to speak out, knowing that some people won't agree, or that they'll be offended, or they'll think that they won't give you the chance to really get to know. They won't give you an opportunity to get into them.
This is why I'll never be that, because it crushes me when somebody doesn't like me.
Right. Exactly.
It just crushes me. I don't know.
I've gotten used to it. I was telling a friend earlier that I will now go onto my YouTube comments or Twitter replies and screenshot some of my favorites and send them to my family. Like, look what I was called today. This one's pretty unique.
Oh my
This one's
gosh.
pretty good. And because they, people, and I don't understand that. It's like, if you don't agree with someone, why would you follow them, or why would you listen to their show? Only to blast them on these comments. But
right.
Some are creative.
Yes.
And so I there's a few that I've kept along the way. So it's pretty good. But it is a challenge, and I think we need to do more of that. And I think over these last couple years, we've seen a segment of the population, a segment of the people that that now have kind of woken up more and seen that our country is headed in the wrong direction. Maybe they're not overly religious or Christian, but that's what's stirring inside them to see we are going down a wrong, dark path, and we need to change things. You see people speaking up at school boards because their children's futures are at stake. These people were never active before.
Interesting. That's
and
true.
Now some of the biggest battlegrounds are these school board meetings, and some of the best, just speaking from my perspective, campaign ads were viral videos from school board meetings.
Really?
Not highly produced or anything, just someone recording someone being mad at some craziness at the school board. And now people are like, well, is that going on in my area?
Yeah.
I'm in Texas, a red state. Is that going on there? You bet it is.
Right.
And so it's really gotten people to realize that, hey, I can't afford not to be involved.
So because you're getting your MA in theology to be able to what? Why would you choose an MA in theology when you are in the political realm? What?
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
Right. I've been asked that a lot, and the thing is what I do for a living. I'll debate the other side, on TV and in these arenas. I'm very confident in that, in my knowledge of what they're going to say and what I can do to diffuse it. And what I've seen over the last, this has probably been going on even longer than I've realized it. We see faith and religion becoming more intertwined with the political realm. The left has infiltrated education, entertainment, big tech, you name it. They're going after religion too, and you see that with watered down, faiths. You have people coming out saying that, the faith needs to change with the times. No, the faith is the one thing that's rock solid, that guides you. And so I wanted a deeper understanding of my faith to be able to go into this arena, even though it's a secular arena, to just be grounded in that, because if they're coming after our faith too, we need to be able to defend it.
Well, Pope Benedict said shortly after his election to the papacy, the Catholic Church, in response to a reporter's question about the Catholic Church changing with the times, and he said, "We are an old ship in a modern ocean."
Right.
And I always just like that imagery of thinking of like, if what happens if the ship, capsizes or it betrays itself or mutiny or what have you. It becomes part of it. Then it's just like everything else.
Right.
It's not unique. It's not exceptional. And what did Christ call us to do? Was to be unique, to be not, in the world, but not of the world.
Right.
That's an interesting analogy of that, because if I were to just visually see an old ship on a new ocean, there'd be a lot of new ships out there, and boy, that old ship would really stand out, wouldn't it? Isn't that the point?
No, that really is the point. Is if people don't see that the role your faith plays in your life they don't see that it has an impact on how you respond to situations in the world, whether they're political, whether you're working for the church, whether you're working in any other capacity, then that they're betraying what Christ called us to do as Christians. Like you can't resemble the world. That was the whole point. That's why he lowered himself to the point of humanity, was to show us that you can't operate. You can't have your cake and eat it too in this respect. And
Jay,
that is the path of the Christian.
I 100% love that, and I've said this many times on the podcast, is that one of the biggest things I love about our young adults is they know authenticity, and they know when it's not authentic, and then they'll question it. And I think that's really where you're speaking of too. Like, we could be Christians and we could be in the world but not of it. But do we really believe in those things that we say we do? And because actions prove it.
Right. And there's a big challenge when we discuss this, because like we've learned in class, when we're talking about Vatican II and some of the driving forces behind there, right? One was to remain true to our roots, our core, our faith. The other side was to read the signs of the times and adapt, but not what our beliefs are, but how we convey that to a modern age.
Not in doctrine, but in accessibility.
That's right. And so, but you can see how that can be twisted, and to the point where it's like we're changing the faith because of the times. Right. No, it's exactly what Jay said. Yeah. The faith is the faith, but that doesn't mean we're going to deliver it in an 1850s style, right?
Hopefully not.
Right, exactly. We wouldn't be having a podcast.
We'll get a lot of people in their caskets ready for the faith, but
here, and I appreciate the phrase, but I think it's often misused, is you need to meet people where they're at, which is true.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean the message or the goal changes as part of that meeting them where they're at. Meeting somewhere they're at is a lack of judgment, a lack of preconceived notion, absolute trying to love that person as much as you can, and then but not sacrificing what you know to be true, which is Christ.
I've always added a little bit to that phrase. I say, meet people where they're at, but love them too much to leave them there, right? So there's that. I think that's the point. And Paul does it really well at the Areopagus, and Jesus, of course, does it really well. Yeah. It didn't convert a whole lot of people, but at that moment, but the model is really good. So now, Jay, let's talk about you a little bit. You're also getting your MA in theology here, but what world industry do you work in, and how does that fit in?
So, background in software sales. Over the last decade or so, I've co-founded a series of technology startup companies in the software world. It has nothing to do with an MA in theology.
Nothing at all.
I have never held a professional role related to the church. Because of this process of earning my master's, I'm actually now formally a catechist for my parish church back in Austin, Texas. But again, that's because that's what I was wanting to do.
Right.
It's because now that I'm learning things and opening up myself, I am now using that. Don't put your lamp under a bush, a basket.
Don't
put
hide
it on
it.
a lampstand.
That's right.
And so just answering that call, where traditionally I've been very hesitant to talk about my faith in a very open way. Whereas now, similar to what Bobby said, I just wanted to teach catechism the right way. And now we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, the technology world, it's interesting. It's not so much, at least in the capacity where I work, people aren't hostile to it so much as they just treat it like it doesn't exist, like faith doesn't exist. Almost like it's an indifference almost.
Sure.
In where I, reside, it's like, yeah. But the interesting thing is when people do find out that you're a person of faith, and that informs the way you treat people first and foremost, and the things you believe in and the things you stand for, they get very interested. So, which is pretty neat, because it's, normally it's like, oh, we just don't talk about that. Separation of church and state, kind of a thing. But, for over the last, decade, or really the last 5 years, as I've become more in touch and more, aware of my own faith and my relationship with Christ, it's really helped me to not have to preach using words. It's more along the lines of just allowing those things to decisions, and then when, oh, by the way, I'm a practicing Catholic, people kind of put it together.
Right.
And to me, that's the best way to live.
I love that. It's like when he eventually says that to someone, it's obvious.
Yep.
It's like, makes sense.
Yeah.
Of course, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's probably what we're more so called to do than to just at every moment, all right, how do I get this person to Jesus? Okay, yes, well, I want everybody to go to Jesus. The getting there is in most of the time in how you treat people. Here's why. I'll ask people all the time, and I'll just ask you guys a question. Jay, of all the teachers you've ever had in your life, now I want you to go way back, okay? Who is your favorite teacher of all time?
That is the easiest question for me to answer. My junior year English literature teacher, Brother Aquinas at Mater Dei High School.
Whoa!
He told me in the second week of school that I was stupid.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "You're one of the smartest kids in my class, but you're stupid." And I was like, tell me more.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd been a C student skating through life with good looks, a smile, and could make a convincing argument. And it was this Irish religious brother that just completely changed my perception of myself. And by no means was that, I'm a changed person. It was, to me, I look back on that experience, it's the first time a teacher had ever really pushed back.
The reason I asked you that question, Jay, is because the way you answered that was, it wasn't the things necessarily that you learned from that teacher. Yes. It was how you were treated.
It was how I was treated. Right. And it ultimately, what he saw in me, I was not seeing in myself at that moment. And we're all presented with a series of choices in our life. And in this case, my favorite teacher was the one that made me choose to see things in a different way.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, as much fun as I am having, we have to start wrapping up, but I thought we could do a little segment where we do rapid fire questions for each of you. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I'm going to fire questions at you and just answer as many as you can, as honestly as you can. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay, we're going to start with you, Bobby, okay?
let's go.
I'm putting 30 seconds on the clock.
All right, bring it
and
on. Oh,
your
an official
first...
time now.
It is an official time, right? That's right, exactly.
Okay.
So 30 seconds on the clock. Here we go. All right, what's the most bizarre thing you've ever eaten?
Bizarre Brussels sprouts.
What's one piece of advice you'd go back and tell your younger self?
Oh man, just go for it.
If you had to live in another country, which country would it be?
Italy.
Wow. If you could be any sea animal, what would you be?
Gee whiz. Probably a shark.
I love it. What's the worst thing you've ever eaten?
Brussels sprouts.
That's so great. If you had a time machine, what part of history would you go back to?
Oh man, I would go to 1776.
Excellent job. That was 30 seconds. You answered it very well. Excellent job, Bobby. Now we're going to shift it over to JJ. You got 30 seconds on the clock, and here are your questions. If you could be a world class at any sport, what would it be?
Soccer.
Oh, what's your favorite time of the year?
Christmas.
Obviously. What would you do for fun if you were stranded on a desert island?
Oh, boy. Next question.
Next question. Where's the worst place that you could get trapped?
In a burning car.
And how much would you pay for a journey into space?
0.
If you could be fluent in any other language, what would it be?
Japanese.
Last one. Describe yourself in one sentence.
I am a sinner.
Ding! That was so great. Oh my gosh. You guys, listen, I cannot thank you enough for being on here. You know how much I enjoy our time together. I know you guys do too. It is a privilege and honor to have you here. This won't be our last conversation. We'll have more. But Bobby, I'm going to be praying for you in the way that you bring the faith into your world. I think you need, maybe of the three of us, maybe you need prayers the most. No, we all need the prayers.
Right.
Yeah.
I need a bunch.
That's right. But we're going to be praying for you. And Jay, thank you so much too. The way that you have been converted into, you love your faith so much, you've learned so much about it that you couldn't possibly keep it in. You are now tasked.
Man.
That's it, right? It's true inspiration. I love it.
Being a witness, gentlemen. That's all it is.
And that's all we're supposed to be. All right. You guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you like this, please share it. Subscribe if you haven't yet already. And we will see you next time on Happy Hour.